Hey, what's up? Hello. If you're new here, my name is Kayla and you are watching Kayla's Bookish Vibes. And today's video is going to be our January reading wrap up. January has been the longest month I think I've ever lived through. I don't know what it is about this January, but it had nowhere to go. She overstayed her welcome, and I'm so glad that it's pretty much over. So I figured, why not go ahead and film our monthly reading wrap up. I read a total of, I'm going to be looking at my reading journal. Guys, I have loved this reading journal. If you saw my last video, I'm pretty sure my last video, or the video before my last video, was the flip through of this thing. I've been keeping up with her. It's been so fun filling this out. It's like part of my alone time whenever I'm just like trying to decompress and it's just me and my thoughts. I have had so much fun filling this out. So I'm going to read some of my reviews from here just to kind of jog my memory. But I read a total of, we'll say 7.5. I read a total of 7.5 books. So we're gonna go over those books and my thoughts on them and the rating and all that. So the first book I read for the month is This Cursed House by Del Sandine. I'll leave a picture of that book here on the screen. This was published at the end of last year of 2024, but I don't own this book. I ended up reading it using my Libby app. And I gave this book 4 stars. This is like a historical fiction / horror novel. I have been reading more horror lately and I keep saying like, I'm not a horror girl, I don't like horror. And I really don't, but a certain type of horror I will indulge in, I will read. And most of the time it's historical horror. I don't like horror that's just like blood, guts, gore, like horror for the sake of being horrific, you know, like just to be scary. I don't like that type of horror, but I think I'm leaning more into historical horror and I'm really enjoying those books. This one takes place in the 1960s in New Orleans. Our main character that we are following is Gemma. And Gemma has just recently taken a job in New Orleans. She's coming from up north. I want to say Chicago. I could be wrong, but I know she's coming from up north and she's in need of a job because she's just broken up with her boyfriend and she just wants to get away and she needs to make some money because baby girl was staying on her friend's couch and she needs to make some money. So she's randomly offered this job in New Orleans to come and stay and kind of be like the house manager. So she accepts the job. She gets to New Orleans and the family that she will be, you know, helping out with is very odd. These are the weirdest group of people ever. And why Gemma didn't leave the moment she realized how weird they were is beyond me. A lot of secrets are uncovered when Gemma gets there, and I don't want to give you all the secrets because I don't want to give this book away, but just know the family that she's working for, she's closer to than she realizes, and these people are extremely weird. There are ghosts in the story, and Gemma can communicate with these ghosts. She can see them, and she can hear them. And again, this is in the 1960s in New Orleans, so there is racism involved. Some of the horrific things, some of the horrific things were due to racism, but also some of it was just due to the family being so weird. Gemma as a main character, I wanted to fight her because there were so many times where I was just like, Gemma, why are you still here, baby? Why are you still in this house when you could easily just go and leave? Obviously, you know, there's some character development in all of the characters involved by the end of the story, and I know why she had to stay. There wouldn't have been a story if she had left. But the entire time I just kept saying, Gemma, pack your bags, okay? Get out of there. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I would say this is definitely a good book for October. You will be frustrated with our main character, but in the end, I think you will enjoy it. I ended up giving it, again, 4 stars. Okay, the next book I read is actually part of the series, and it is called This Woven Kingdom. And I believe this series is also called This Woven Kingdom. I'm gonna put the book here because I actually checked this one out from the library. I don't own this one either. Look at us reading books that we don't own and returning them and not buying books. Look at us. Okay, so the author's name is Tara Mafi, I believe. I could be pronouncing that way wrong. I know she has a really popular series, and I think it's the Shatter Me series. Never read that series. This is my first time reading from this author. And I gave this book 3 stars. I ended up giving it 3 stars, which means I didn't love it, also didn't hate it, but probably won't be recommending it, which is weird to say because I do plan on continuing this series. I want to say this is YA because it read very YA to me. This is kind of like a Cinderella retelling. So we have, I believe her name was Eliza, and she's working as like a servant in disguise, literally a Cinderella retelling. Okay, there wasn't a lot of like originality taking with the story. There wasn't a lot of creativity that was taking with the story. Eliza is working as a servant in disguise. She bumps into the prince, who falls in love with her. He has no understanding why he loves her so much, but he falls in love with her, and it's just a Cinderella, honestly a Cinderella retelling. Now I will say the prince in this story I did not enjoy. I did not like his character. He seems very spoiled and rude, and felt like he knew everything when he obviously knows very little. He was very belittling to a lot of the characters in the book, and I'm just like, something about this man I don't like. And it's very hard for me to enjoy a fantasy romance if I don't like the male and the female that are together in this romance. And I just wasn't feeling the male main character. I do plan on continuing the series though. I did check out the second book from the library. I don't plan on buying the series, but I do plan on reading the series. I'm just gonna check them all out through my library. So yeah, 3 stars for this Woven Kingdom. The next book I read was Unlikely Neighbors by Renee Daniel Flagler. I'm going to leave the cover here because I don't own this book either. This one was actually an ARC that I read on NetGalley. This book releases in April. I'll put the release date on the screen as well. This is a romance. I literally picked this book because I wanted to read just like a contemporary romance, and something about the cover and the title of the book gave me Neighbor Favor by Christina Forrest. So I was like, let me read this book. I absolutely loved the Neighbor Favor. It was 5 stars for me. So I was like, it's giving those vibes, so let me check it out. Unfortunately, I did not like it as much as I love the Neighbor Favor. I ended up giving this book 3 stars as well, which if you're not familiar with my star ratings, that means I didn't love the book, but I also didn't hate it, and I may or may not recommend. I do recommend this book if you were looking for like a cute romance. I want to say nice and fluffy. It wasn't necessarily nice and fluffy because there was some spice in this book. It wasn't like overpowering, but there was more spice than I typically enjoy in my romances. However, the spice is not why I didn't like love the book. I did not mind the spice. I felt like it was perfectly paced and placed at the right moments. I think it was tastefully done. Like, I had no problem with the spice or the amount of spice. I'm just saying, for my personal preference, this is spicier. So for my girlies who enjoy, spice, I would say you would probably enjoy this book. In this book, we are following Holland and Noble. Holland has just moved to New York because she has inherited a brownstone there. Someone from her family has passed away and they left her this brownstone. The kicker is Holland is adopted. She knows she's adopted and she's interested in figuring out who left her this brownstone because she doesn't have any contact with her biological family. And that's kind of her storyline, is trying to figure out who her family was and how she fits into all of that. It's kind of like searching for her identity in that way. And then we have Noble, who is a CEO who has just recently been let go from his position as CEO, and he is trying to figure out his identity as well, but he wants to know who he is outside of work. He did not have work-life balance at all. He was all about his job. He had no friends, no real dating life to speak of outside of work. And now that he no longer has this to attach his identity to, he needs to figure out who he is outside of that. And so obviously Holland helps him do that. They're neighbors. Obviously the title of the book, Unlikely Neighbors. The brownstone she ends up inheriting is right next door to Noble's brownstone. And we go from there. Like I said, it was okay. It was cute. It was a good time. I kind of flew through it. 3 stars. I don't love it. Also don't hate it. And I would recommend it maybe to people who just want like a really good time. There's not a lot of trauma per se in this romance, although our main character, the female main character, is going through like an identity crisis because she's trying to figure out who her family was. There were some characters in there that really irritated my soul. They irritated my soul. But it wasn't the male main character or the female main character, so I was able to get through it. As long as it's not those two and I enjoy those two, it's fine. Also, this is dual POV, and you guys know that is something that I'm a stickler for when it comes to my romances. I despise when romances are not dual POV, and this one is. So, if it sounds interesting to you, then pick it up. The next book, I'm going to mention 2 books as one book, even though they are 2 separate books, and that is Don't Cry for Me and Isaac's Song by Daniel Black. I did a reading vlog on these 2 books. If you haven't checked that out, you should definitely check that out. I will leave it linked down below. These books came highly recommended to me from one of my favorite booktubers. So I was like, you know what? Let's start a new series. Let's start taking some book recommendations from people that you just naturally watch and enjoy their content all the time. And that's exactly what I did. And I loved these books. 5 stars. These are 2 5 stars that I read in the month of January. And I still think about these books. I'm so glad that I didn't allow these books to sit too long on my shelf. So the first book, if you want to read these 2 books, I want to call them a duology, but I don't think In my mind, they are connected this way, but I don't think they're considered a duology. But they are a pairing. And if you want to read them in order, which I highly recommend that you do, you start with Don't Cry For Me. In Don't Cry For Me, we're following Jacob, who is dying. That's not a spoiler, like you get that like within the first few pages. He is dying and he decides to leave his son, Isaac, a series of letters, just explaining himself about where he comes from, why he is the way he is, and essentially to apologize for the way that he treated his son. Isaac, the son, is gay, and Jacob is a straight black male from a very specific time period in the South. And so in his mind, things should be a very strict in a very specific way. However, Isaac does not live his life the way that his father believes men should live their lives. I loved this book. You'll have to read my reading vlog to get like my real-time reaction. But it was so familiar to me. It was so personal to me because I could relate to so many things in this book. I said multiple times that it just felt like an apology letter, not just to Isaac, but to so many black boys and girls who may have grown up with a very strict father, who didn't play around, like not even in the slightest, and was kind of hard to love. So honestly, 5 stars. Please read the book. I don't want to give you any more than I've already given you. If you want more, again, you can watch that vlog, but highly, highly recommend this book. And I can't wait to get into more Daniel Black. So many of you told me in that video that I need to read Perfect Peace. I am going to get that book and read it at some point. I don't know when, but I will be reading Perfect Peace eventually. Now the second book is Isaac's Song, again 5 stars, and this is in essence the story of Isaac. So we get glimpses of Isaac in Don't Cry For Me, but you really get to know Isaac as Isaac gets to know himself in his book, which is Isaac's Song. Again, I gave this one also 5 stars and I read them back to back. So in my mind and in my heart, they're one book, but they're not one book. I thought that Isaac's Song would kind of be like his response to Don't Cry For Me, you know, to the letters that his dad wrote him, but it's really not. It's literally Isaac's story and how Isaac viewed his life and the memories that he had growing up. It's also about Isaac finding his identity as a gay man, as a black man, and I loved it. I loved Isaac's Song just as much as I love Don't Cry For Me. The therapy representation in this book is spectacular. I called this book Therapy Dupe, and I stand by that. I absolutely love the therapist aspect of this. And I'm so glad and proud of Isaac. I talk about him as if he's a real as if he's a real person. And I have to remind myself daily that Isaac is not real, baby. He is a fictional character in a book. I loved the story within a story that was in Isaac's Song. I absolutely wish that that was like its own separate story. I would love to read more historical fiction by Daniel Black, and I have plans on getting my hands on some of his other books. I actually think I own a Daniel Black book on my shelf, but it's in like one of my totes that are packed away. So I have to go through that box because I'm pretty sure the one that I own is a historical fiction. So I need to go through the box because I want to read that book ASAP. So yeah, those 2 books, absolutely amazing. Highly recommend those books. The next book we have is the second book in a series, and it is The Love Simulation by Etta Easton. This is, I believe the series is called, what is that series called? On Goodreads, it's not considered a series, but this is a series. This is the second book. They may be like standalones, but they're interconnected. They are definitely interconnected. So the first book is The Kiss Countdown. I read that book last year and I really enjoyed it. And then this year I ended up requesting The Love Simulation, which is the second book in that standalone series, as an arc on NetGalley. So I don't have the book, and I'll place the cover here on the screen. This book releases in March. I'll put the release date on the screen as well. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. The spice on this is very low. And the only reason I gave this 3 stars and not 4 is because it's not dual POV. It's not dual POV. Neither was The Kiss Countdown. That one wasn't dual POV either, and I think I took a star for that as well. But the thing about it is The Kiss Countdown was okay. It was okay, even though it wasn't dual POV. But this one, The Love Simulation, I think really could have benefited from being dual POV. And here's why. We are following Bree and Roman. Bree is the assistant principal at a school. Something I loved about this book is it gave me major Abbott Elementary vibes. I don't watch a lot of television. I probably watch the same 5 shows. And Abbott Elementary is one of the shows that I watch faithfully, okay? Loved this book because it gave me like the Abbott Elementary vibes. There was an Ava-esque character in this book, and I loved seeing her on the page. Not our main character though. She was not the Ava character. So our main character, Bree, is the vice principal of a school. And then our male main character, Roman, is the son of the principal at this school. And Bree is convinced that Roman wants her job. She is convinced that him and his father are working together to get her out of the school so that he can step into the vice principal role. She is just concerned about getting a new library for the school because the library they had is run down. So there's an opportunity that comes up where they can, I guess, go into this Mars simulation. And if they win the simulation, which is kind of like a contest, if they win it, they'll win enough money to redo the library. So of course she jumps at the chance to join in on the simulation with her and a few of her co-workers in order to get this new library. The problem with it not being dual POV is we only get Bree fawning over our main character. And it gets to the point where it really feels like she is into him way more than he's into her. And I hate that. I hate that in my romances. There were so many times where I just wanted to be like, Bree, stand up, babe. Stand up. And because it's not reciprocated as far as like for the reader, we don't get to know Roman's thoughts. We don't get to know how he feels about her. It feels like it's not reciprocated equally. So it just really feels like she's in love with him and he just kind of likes her. And I hated reading it that way. Whereas I know for a fact if we would have gotten Roman's point of view and we would have known how much he also enjoyed her, how much he loved her, how much he was obsessed with her, then it would have been a much better reading experience, but we didn't get that, so I docked a star. And that's why I gave it 3 stars. I think this is the only book I've held up in this. I do own Isaac's Song and Daniel Black. I just realized I never held them up. But I do own both of those. These were my book of the month picks. So I do have those physically. But this is the other book that I had physically that I read this month. And it is called The American Queen by Vanessa Miller. But because I don't want to hold these books up, I will go ahead and put the books here on the screen. I gave 4 stars. This is historical fiction. I have had this book on my shelf since last year and I really meant to read it last year and it literally just slipped my mind. I don't know why I didn't read it. But there is a new book coming out this year that I do plan on reading very soon because I actually got an arc of it. But I wanted to read this one first. I was like, I already know that I don't know a lot about Happy Land, but I have a book on my shelf and I really want to read that one because I think the way that they'll correlate is going to be so cool to see. Anyway, we'll try to focus on one book at a time. This book takes place in 1869 and we are following Luella. In the beginning, she is enslaved, but it's on the cusp of freedom. So it's like right when the Civil War ends and she does end up becoming free. Luella is very convinced that the plantation she grew up on, she doesn't want to stay. They start off in Mississippi and obviously she doesn't want to stay on this plantation, but she has family members who are up in age and they don't know where else to go. They don't know what else to do besides what they've always done. And so it takes a lot of convincing on Luella's part and some things to transpire before she can get these people to leave. By people, I mean the people that she loves. So her husband and her grandmother, she finally convinces them that they can leave this plantation. Some horrible things had to happen in order to convince these people to leave the plantation, but they do end up leaving. And when they decide to leave, they take quite a few people with them. And so you kind of follow them as they make their way from Mississippi to North Carolina, where they establish a land that they called the Happy Land. And in this land, their dream is to build a society where they can be respected, where they can provide for themselves and for everyone around them. This is very much a one for all for one type of scenario. And they call it the Happy Land. Queen Luella, which is what they end up calling her and her husband together, build this place up literally from the ground up. They build it as far as like housing and jobs and making sure that everyone there eats. And this is an actual thing that actually happened. This is based on a true story. I had no clue about the Happy Land whatsoever. I'm so glad I picked this book up. I think I would recommend this book for people who really enjoyed Yellow Wife by Sadiqa Johnson. After finishing the book, which is so fitting because I'm pretty sure Sadiqa Johnson blurbed this book. She says, "The American Queen brings to light another hidden triumph in Black American history." I think if you enjoyed The Yellow Wife, you will enjoy this one. While it is not as dark as The Yellow Wife, there are moments where things get, the time period, baby. It lends itself to being realistic to that time period. There were some things that happened that were not pretty, that were not like roses and flowers. And some of those things are depicted in the book, but I would say it's not as dark as some of the scenes that were depicted in The Yellow Wife. Highly recommend. I'm very happy that I picked this book up. And I think that you should too. If you're someone who's trying to get into historical fiction, or if you're someone who enjoys historical fiction and you haven't picked this one up, this one is definitely worth reading. Again, I gave this one 4 stars. And this is a moment in history that is not talked about nearly enough. I plan on making like a whole homeschool curriculum, like where we take a week to really learn about this, because this is something that I don't even think the teachers that taught me in public school knew about this. Highly doubt that they knew. I'm pretty sure my parents don't know about this. So this is something that is like, once you read the book and you get the knowledge, I really encourage you to buy another copy and pass it on so that other people can also get this knowledge. Highly recommend this one. The last book is like the half book. I want to mention this in this reading wrap up, even though I haven't finished the book yet, because I plan on finishing it very soon. Honestly, I plan on finishing by the end of the month. Taking literally the rest of tonight and into tomorrow to finish this book because I have it on audio. And that is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. It's the 3rd book in the Empyrean series. Obviously, I cannot give you a star rating because I haven't finished the book. And I also cannot give you a synopsis because it would ruin 4th Wing and Iron Flame, which are books obviously that I've completed. I don't want to ruin those 2 books for you, but just know that I've read 50, at this point I'm at the 50% mark. I read 50% of Onyx Storm, and I will continue reading Onyx Storm today and tomorrow so that I can finish this book because I refuse to take it into February with me. I am enjoying it. I guess I have to edit this video, so I'll put the star rating that I end up giving it here on the screen because I do plan on finishing this book before I post this video. But I needed to sit down to film the video and I didn't want to wait any longer. So you'll be able to see my star rating here. I am enjoying it so far, so I don't see it getting less than a 3-star, but I wanted to mention it in my January reading wrap up because I know I will be finishing this in January. This is going to be like my chore book while I'm doing chores, while I'm doing dishes, while I'm doing laundry, while I'm folding clothes, while I'm doing all the things. This is going to be the book that I'm listening to, and I have been listening to it on audio. I've kind of been going back and forth, but most of it has been on audio. Anytime there's like a moment or a chapter where I feel like I'm not grasping or I don't really know what just happened, I will break out my physical copy and read that book or like read that chapter and then get back into the audio. I am enjoying it though. So I just wanted to mention that one as an honorable mention because I'm going to finish it in January. Those are all the books that I read this month. How many books was that? 7? 8? 8 books in the month of January. That was a really good reading month. I had 2 5-stars and a 4-star. To me, that is an amazing reading month. Okay, you win some, you lose some, but if I get at least 1 5-star a month, I feel like I'm doing pretty good. So let me know if you've read any of the books down below or if you're going to be adding any of these books to your TBR. Thank you so much for staying until the very end. If you did make it to the end of today's video, please leave this emoji to let me know that you stuck around, and I will see you guys in my next video.